All right, today we are diving into one of the most foundational stories ever told, Genesis chapter 12. And our goal here is to break it down verse by verse in a way that creates this unforgettable cinematic experience right in your mind.
So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to focus on the action, the emotion, and the high-impact visuals in every single verse. Seriously, no summaries, no skipping ahead. We're going to take a straight shot right through the story as it unfolds. Let's get into it.
So, the story kicks off with a voice that literally changes the world. And this isn't a suggestion, you guys. It's a command. And it comes with a promise so huge, it's going to define all of history. This is the moment Abram's journey begins.
Okay, verse 1. The Lord speaks to Abram, and the command is just absolute. I want you to picture Abram standing at the edge of his hometown, right? A place he knows inside and out. And he's told to turn his back on everything. His country, his entire clan, even his own dad's house. Everything that means safety and identity. And he's just supposed to start walking to a place he's never even seen.
Now for verse 2. In exchange for everything he's leaving behind, Abram gets these three incredible promises. So for your mental picture, just imagine him looking up at this vast night sky. And as that first promise is spoken, I will make you a great nation, bam, a billion new stars just ignite across the heavens. For I will bless you and make your name great. Imagine one single brilliant star shining like a king's crown. And for you shall be a blessing, picture that same star sending this warm, gentle light all the way down to the earth.
Verse 3. Suddenly, the promise goes global. Picture a map of the ancient world. A pulse of light starts right where Abram is standing, and it expands outward, but not like an explosion, more like a gentle wave. And as this wave of blessing touches every other nation on that map, they start to glow too. See, this promise isn't just for him, it's for everyone, through him.
Okay, so a command has been given, a promise has been made. This next part is all about the response. Does Abram hesitate? Does he argue? Or does he just walk? What he does next is everything.
So let's break this down. Verse 4 gives us Abram's immediate response. The text is so simple, so Abram departed. He just goes. And now get this. Picture Abram. He's 75 years old. Lock that in your mind, a close-up on this weathered, determined face. This is not some young adventurer. And then in verse 5, we see who he takes, his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their stuff. So imagine the camera pulling way back to show this massive caravan, kicking up dust. A whole life on the move, just heading straight into the unknown.
Verse 6. They arrive, and to make this real, just picture a single, enormous, ancient oak tree standing all by itself in this rugged valley. This is the tree of Moreh at Shechem, their first major landmark. It must have felt like a huge moment of arrival. But then, the verse adds this kind of chilling detail. The Canaanites were in the land. So imagine, in the shadows that great tree is casting, you can just make out the silhouettes of armed men watching them. The Promised Land, it's already occupied.
Let's just quickly trace that movement on a map. So they started way up in Haran, traveled hundreds of miles south into the land of Canaan, and made that first camp at a really significant and, as we saw, occupied spot in Shechem.
Verse 7. Right there, with the threat of the Canaanites literally looming in the shadows, the Lord appears directly to Abram, and the promise gets even more specific. To your descendants I will give this land. Imagine a shimmer of divine light just enveloping that great tree, confirming this is the spot. And Abram's response? It's immediate. Picture his dusty, strong hands just gathering these heavy, rough stones and stacking them one by one, building this raw, powerful altar right there. It's an act of worship, and it's a statement of faith.
Verse 8. Abram keeps moving. The visual here is of his tent, pitched on a high, windy ridge. On one side, way down below, you can see the flickering lights of a town called Bethel. On the other side, another town called Ai. And right there, between them, picture Abram standing by a second stone altar that he's built, his voice just carrying on the wind as he calls out to God. This is his pattern: journey, camp, worship.
Verse 9. This part of the story ends with just this pure, relentless forward motion. The image is simple, but it's powerful. We see Abram's silhouette from behind, this solitary figure just walking steadily deeper and deeper into the sun-drenched, hazy landscape of the south. The journey is far from over.
And now, the story takes a really sharp turn. Just as Abram is following God into the Promised Land, disaster strikes. And this first big test, it reveals that even a man of incredible faith can be gripped by paralyzing fear.
Verse 10, a famine. Not just, a shortage of food, but a severe one. The visual is of that vibrant land we just saw, but now it's all cracked, barren dust under a brutal sun. Suddenly, the promised land is hostile. So, out of sheer desperation, Abram turns toward Egypt. Picture the Great Pyramids on the horizon, a symbol of both life-saving grain and, well, immense, dangerous power.
Verse 11, as they get close, fear just takes over. Picture a tight shot on Abram's face as he looks at Sarai. He tells her, "I know you are a beautiful woman." Then in verse 12, his fear just spirals. He says the Egyptians will see her, they'll want her, and they'll kill him to get her. For the visual, imagine a quick flash in Abram's mind, an Egyptian sword and his own body falling to the ground. His faith in God's protection, it's just vanished, replaced by pure terror.
Verse 13, and here it is. Here's his plan, born from that fear. He begs Sarai, "Please, say you are my sister." Focus on his face as he says it. It's a desperate plea. He even admits the selfish motive, so that he'll be treated well and his life will be spared. He is putting her directly in the path of danger just to save himself.
Verse 14, Abram's fear comes true instantly. The moment they arrive, the Egyptians notice Sarai's beauty. The visual is from an Egyptian official's point of view. He's scanning a crowd, and his eyes just lock onto Sarai. Everything else just blurs. Then verse 15, the consequences are swift. The princes tell Pharaoh himself about her, and she is taken. The indelible image here is of the massive, ornate gates of Pharaoh's palace closing with this heavy thud, sealing Sarai inside and leaving Abram completely alone outside.
Verse 16, Abram gets his reward. As Sarai's supposed brother, he's paid this massive bribe price. The visual is just this list, but imagine a mountain of wealth, livestock, servants, treasure, all being piled at Abram's feet, but he isn't even looking at it. He's just staring at that palace gate, his face totally hollow. He got what he wanted, safety and riches, but at the highest possible cost.
Verse 17. Abram's plan has failed. Miserably. But, and this is a huge but, God's promise hasn't. Right here, God steps in. The visual isn't just, frogs or locusts, but this creeping dread. Inside the opulent palace, a dark shadow just falls over everything. Pharaoh clutches his head in agony, and the text is crystal clear. This is happening because of Sarai, Abram's wife. God is protecting her and his promise when Abram would not.
Verse 18, and just like that, the power has completely shifted. Abram is dragged before the throne. The image is from Abram's point of view, looking way up at the towering, furious figure of Pharaoh. And it is the pagan king who delivered the righteous rebuke, his voice just booming, "What have you done to me?"
Verse 19. Pharaoh lays out the crime. He exposes the lie and reveals just how close they all came to total disaster. "I might have taken her as my wife." And then comes the command. Imagine him just gesturing dismissively. Guards bring Sarai forward, and Pharaoh says, "Here is your wife. Take her and go."
Verse 20. The final scene in Egypt. Abram doesn't just leave. He's deported. The visual is this wide shot. Abram, Sarai, and all their new wealth being escorted to the border by a squad of Egyptian soldiers. It's a walk of shame, a humiliating expulsion from the very land he had fled to for safety. This chapter is a total whirlwind, but it really boils down to one man's journey, one defining promise that sets the whole thing in motion, and one crucial test that reveals the massive difference between human fear and divine faithfulness. Abram's clever plan to save himself didn't just fail, it made everything so much worse and required God to come in and rescue everybody. And it leaves us with a question that really echoes from his failure all the way to our own lives. When your own carefully crafted plans completely fall apart, what or who is left to trust?